Okay, guys, how you doing? Sorry, very late today. My daughter had to be picked up at school unexpectedly. Welcome to parenthood when you're self-employed. Um, anyway, so a couple things I wanted to cover um, today, so you understand how they work. And one is, first of all, welcome to our new members. I'm still behind in getting everybody on board, but slowly getting our people on board. I want to cover batch leads in a very light duty way. There are better trainings online. Batch leads has a wonderful directory of trainings. Um, and that's where we can guide you to most of the training. And we do have a couple people in our team who are good at batch leads, and we can certainly set up a more educated, focused timeline on that. All right. Anyway, so when you log into batch leads, and you will see, and I'm going to create I'm getting to close to my batch leads limit of users. Um, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so I basically am at may or may not be at my limit of users. So I may be just creating a generic one from here on out that people will just share. But anyway, what am I trying to say? All right. So you log into batch leads. You want to comp a property. And here we go. We already have one in here. 18 Harvest Drive, Thorndale. Beautiful. So then you want to ask it for comparable. Well, you want to ask it to actually show you. There we go. Show me the property. Fine. One property found. Boom. Here's everything it knows about the property. Pops right up. Look at that cute little development here. Zoom in. What a cute little house. Living area 1,080 square feet. 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. Okay, fine. Comparables. This tells us what it's worth. Now we only care about sold. Active and pending are backups. The reason they're backups is, first of all, active is simply what they're asking for it. And I don't care. I'm asking 1.2 million for my single family house in Kingston. Good luck. No one's buying it, price. And pending is, in the MLS world, locked at. Hey Nair, how you doing?
How you doing?
All right. Pending. I'll catch up in a second. Pending is locked. There you are. Hello. Welcome to our show.
Hello, Steve.
How you doing? So yeah. So I'll get back to your question. I'm actually showing batch leads right now. Basically, what I want to do is I want to introduce everyone to batch leads. We have several different apps. We have batch leads for residential and small multifamily. For a while, we have Crexy, which is Crexy Intelligence, which is a batch end for multifamily, larger multifamily commercial, blah, blah, blah. And we have Tracked IQ, which is for self-storage. And we also have Land OS if you want to focus on land. In fact, I think there's another Land OS training that year. Are you having any luck with that?
Actually, yeah. I looked at a few properties that my assistant is calling right now, and like I said, it breaks down everything to the letter. All you got to really do is put in the address. It'll tell the land value and everything associated with that, and it'll clearly state. If you send stuff from like batch leads, it'll clearly tell you every time that batch leads doesn't ever do land value. It's more like
Yep.
estimated what the property could be worth if you were to put it on that land. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
exactly.
And then
And also remember, Land OS is good for the reverse. Land OS is for finding. Um, Land OS is for finding land as well. It's the batch leads for land.
indeed, yes.
And that's what Tracked IQ is for self storage. I think we lost Mustafa. Okay, if you come back on, that's great. Um, okay, I think he's back. Okay, yeah. So you're starting to get comfortable with Land OS and kind of getting somewhere with it.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. I will say that I've used it probably about for a full, because what I did was I put all my properties into a CSV and I
Okay.
sent the file to the Land OS, and it literally categorized each one in like a matter of minutes. It was insane. It took like about 4 or 5 minutes. It had everyone, every land value, what it was worth, the dirt, mineral. It really went into details on how to really evaluate it. So it's pretty solid. It's
Okay.
well worth the investment.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. And I actually, just so you know, I kind of had my uncle passed Friday, which isn't the reason, but it kind of set me back about a day on everything.
Hmm.
So I'm going to train on the CRM probably today, and I'll probably train you guys on it on Thursday.
Okay.
So so the CRM is coming online. I just need some time to wrap my head around it a little bit. Um, and that's actually what I'm logging in now to talk to the guy about that as well, just so I have it up on my screen and I don't forget. So we have several different tools, and including Land OS for land. Um, and so on and so forth. I'm just letting the CRM guy know. So when you're using batch leads, and I believe both of you are comfortable here, so this is more training for other people. If you guys want to chime in, please do. We ever primarily only care about sold. And that's kind of where you guys kind of logged on, is in the MLS world, which is where a lot of this residential data comes from. These pull from county records, but most county records residential are sold by realtors. So that means most county records residential are MLS. So that's kind of how it cascades down. Active is, of course, someone's asking for it. I want $1 million for my 1972 Hyundai. No, you're not getting it. You can ask it all you want, it's not happening. Pending is someone signed a contract at some number, but the system locks it at the listing price because they haven't disclosed the closing price yet. They're probably still doing things like inspections. So the only actual number that really tells us anything is sold. What has the county recorded the sale at? Now, we literally had this conversation with this woman in this house yesterday, and she had a mortgage of 90 grand, and she said, I want 180. And then we're looking and saying 280, 230, 320, whatever. So we're like, okay, you want 180, no problem. You do a wholesale at 180 all day long. And don't worry, we are recording this. I see you kind of blinking in and out. So if we keep losing you, we are recording.
Okay.
But it helps if I actually put my screen back on stage. So this woman we talked about, she wanted 180 for her property. We're looking at 280, 280, 280, 280. Okay, fine. We come further down in batch leads and we start to look at more details. So we're like, okay, you only want 180 on a wholesale and your neighborhood's 280. So I advised her, I said, listen, I said, go off market, you go wholesale. We are paying you less than you might get if we list you as an agent and put it on the open market. And she's like, well, how much less? I said, well, at least a third. Why? Because we have to pay our lender, whoever flips it. And understand, in Pennsylvania, if you're not licensed, a lot of what I'm saying now is beyond what your license allows. So primarily, we want you to be collecting information, working with us through the seller. But you collect the information, you get us in touch with, you collect all the data, you work with the seller to collect the data, but you're not giving this advice. That's a substantive license conversation restricted to licensees in units 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you're still getting paid for it. You're still involved in the process. You're still hearing it. You're still learning it, whatever. But there's a line, and we'll walk you through that. But we said, well, here's the thing. A flipper is going to have to pay about 12% to their lender. They're going to have to pay about 8 or 9% to their listing agents or selling agent and various holding and transaction costs. And they're going to want to make about a 10% profit. So that's about a third of the money. So, and this confuses people finding a nice way to say it that doesn't explode their heads. But suddenly 280, let's call it 270 because it's easy, you lose 90 grand. 270 becomes 190 or 180 real fast because of your lender, your realtor, and 10% profit. Then we had to take out, and she's like, oh, so I got 180. I said, well, not quite, because there's repairs. And she's like, well, the least I can do is 180. And in this neighborhood, we took a shot at it because her pictures look beautiful. And we said, yeah, okay, fine, we'll do 180 because I'm pretty sure someone's going to pick it up for 220 and just live in the damn thing. And then she calls us this morning. She's like, well, I'm rethinking. I think I might go in a different direction. I said, great. You want to list it? She's like, I'm still rethinking. I said, okay, which is the kiss of death. Bluntly, that's the kiss of death. We'll never hear back from this person. But that's what the flipper math looks like. We have a lot of newer people when they come in and they collect the data on their properties and they're writing up the information. They're saying, well, based on the Zestimate, we think this. And based on typical repairs, we think that, which is, oh, fine, give me whatever you think. But I'm not belittling it at all. I do not want to make this sound like I'm putting anything out of question. But here's the problem with Zillow. And I'm hoping this one comes up with that problem. Okay, actually, it didn't. So a lot of times, Zillow is typically 20% off. You never know which direction. This is a surprising one where it's kind of sort of in line. People will call up and say, well, Zestimate says my property is worth $350, and we have to tell them, well, actually, things in your neighborhood are actually closing at this other number. So in this one, it kind of worked out. And the reason Zestimate's off is it sees 525, it sees 444, it sees 404. It doesn't know how those properties compare. It just knows numbers. A 3-bedroom, 2-bath is this price. It doesn't really know how to do square footage. It doesn't know how to do quality. So that's why a tool like Batch Leads. And we then come down here, and part of your research when you capture, when you get a seller on the phone, because that is probably 50% of your job, is getting someone who wants to talk about real estate that's willing to actually engage in giving us the information we need to decide. Nair and I have had a couple people, as many people have. Yeah, I'd like to sell my 5-unit property in Philly, but give me a number. Okay, well, what can you tell me about it? When you figure out a number, I'll tell you more about the property. Well, that makes it really hard to figure out property because I don't know the value. I can't determine condition. I can't determine what works and what doesn't, who pays what utilities. If they aren't willing to give you that basic information, it's a low priority because they're not that motivated. If it's, I might sell for the right number. Now, as a listing agent, I'll have that conversation because I'm going to put it out there at their number and I'm going to be locked to take a percentage of whatever they sell it for. As a wholesaler, I'm saying to them, here's my number. I get anything on top of that number. And so it's different. We have to be a little more precise in our wholesale conversations. So when someone is not engaging, and like this lady in Thornhurst, like I prepared her contract. I guess my mistake was I didn't drop everything and write her contract last night. I went to the meetup I was planning on going to. And she woke up and she had second thoughts in the morning. Guess what? She would have had second thoughts anyway. But her responses this morning were, well, I think I want to, I don't understand how you arrived at that number, even though it's the number she asked for. I guess I'm going to talk to some other people, see who they can offer me more. And I explained to her that, well, those other people are called wholesalers. They're illegal. And they'll tell you whatever you want to hear in order to get the deal. And then they'll leave you hanging. And the last thing I tell everyone is, if you want to sell for a number, you want a listing. If you want to sell quickly, you want it off market. And we do have a hybrid, whole different conversation. So that's what you guys are doing. Now, since you both are experienced in batch leads, I'd like to at some point have you guys kind of walk through, and you want to, maybe I don't want to do it today, walk through and show how to use this to find leads. And even if you want, one of you or Nair or anybody want to do a training on how to use this to find leads, because you can do driving routes. You can create lists based on certain criteria. Obviously, Nair's put in some stuff here, so that's great.
Yeah. And
create dialing lists. So, Nair, I don't know if you want to jump in and do it now. You want to do it at a different time, but I'd like to record a training on that as well. And frankly, this isn't the tool that I know.
yeah. So with batch leads, it's fairly. I want to say it's fairly simple. You know, you pick your market. Like let's say Pennsylvania. What's the particular zip code for the house you were just talking about in Thorndale?
I don't. I mean, just if you want it from here, sort of show me. Just walk us through it, and I'll click the buttons, or else you can take over the screen.
Got you. So you see where it says enter city, state, or address or zip. You would honestly just put any zip in, you know, that you have in that market. If you do have any zips in that market, well, you got one. See, there you go. So that one with batch leads automatically does. Sometimes it automatically skip traces it. You would click the property address.
But how do you even get to the point of having a property in here at all? I'm saying if somebody wants to create a list to make calls from,
Got
do that.
Got you. All right. So then you get out of this, go to that little, I don't know what you call it, the location cursor.
Okay.
Right there. Yep. Property search. Yep. So what you would do is delete, go to that bar, delete that, put a zip code in. Now it has
see a lot of properties, a lot of numbers here.
Has 12 properties. You can either do it, you can either manually do it, which you would go to either all filters. You would either manually do it, go to all filters, but you got to go to off market because you have it on all. You know, when you want to build leads, I just go off market every time. It's
okay.
It's relatively simpler. You don't got to sift through MLS data. It'll give you off market. Now the thing about batch leads is it has this AI called Batch Rank AI. Really, I always keep it at 100 normally because it pulls the most motivated sellers without you putting it in manually and going for what you want. 9 times out of 10 is going to pull the most motivated. So if you click the Batch Rank AI,
okay,
and you turn it on, or I think hit the on button, and then you drag the cursor. Well, once you click Batch Rank, you would drag it all the way up, and normally it'll give you a set list. Like that 4,000 will go down. Sometimes it'll go down, sometimes it'll be at 0. Now you have 187. So instead of the 4,000, it pulls the most motivated. You would then click 187. Oh, well, you forgot that. You would then click 187. Then you take that 187, you go to select all, you hit select, that box and select.
Yeah.
And then you hit select all. And then you go to save.
All right.
And then you hit save properties. Now, the thing about it is too, it lets you save agents. I don't really use that, but if you have your license and you use that, you can use that too. So then once you hit save, or if you want to create a tag, once you hit save, you can hit save agents or skip for now.
Now, save agents means saving the agents who are, but if these are off market, who are the agents?
Yeah, so that's why I don't really use it.
Don't bother. Okay, yeah.
So once you hit save, you would then go back to your list.
Okay, but now do we also filter by this and say we want certain characteristics?
Oh, well, if you want to do it manually, you can filter by that and do it by certain characteristics. You have your absentee owner, out of state owner, whatever you want to pull within that area, you can pull, you know.
Yeah, and just sort of to jump in here, what you're looking for is, I mean, of course, absentee owner will cover both in and out of state. You don't want anything that's maybe failed listing, but you don't really care about. You don't want active listing or pending listing. You don't want anywhere and recently sold. You don't want those. Pre-foreclosure. These are nice. You can
Pre-foreclosure
and foreclosures are going up like crazy. This is a hot filter. So now if we said we don't want active auction, because once it's active auction, then you've got lawyers involved and it becomes a pain in the ass. equity and loan, equity and lien. We can talk more about those, but these are other criterias, and we can teach you over time. But now all of a sudden, see 0 properties that meet all of these criteria. Because unfortunately, it's an and, not an or.
Right. So sometimes when you see 0 properties, sometimes you have to turn the batch rank off.
Yeah.
I'm saying sometimes you just got to turn it. This is something you really just got to play with a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Because I know with me, sometimes I have to refresh it, play with it a little bit, and then it'll get back to a regular schedule program. But normally what Steve is saying is absolutely correct. You want your pre-foreclosures, you want your foreclosures because they are going up, which is insane. I've never seen anything like it, but
yeah,
these are the things you want, the out of state, out of county stuff that's really not like the owner or the person in the property doesn't have that much, how do you say, like attachment to. Because I remember what Steve told me the one time was, if they've been living in it for years, 9 times out of 10, they ain't gonna want to, unless it's a major motivation with it. You know what I mean? So you want your pre-foreclosures, you want your notice. I do notice a default sometimes, and sometimes I call them NODs. Sometimes they be good too, because
and you're looking for, when you're picking this manual, and I'm not putting batch rank down, it's great, but and you're combining this, you're playing with it, you're looking for what is their pressure point. Their pressure point is in here, that the bank is chasing them. The pressure point might be here that they have high equity or they're free and clear, because the cash buyer is a way of finding buyers. It's a whole different conversation. But okay, well, I have a lot of equity, so I can sell it now and make a lot of money. Your pressure point might be, in here, with it's sort of in the more complicated version of tax liens. Basically there's other pressure points, but if we're looking for wholesale sellers, we're looking for motivated sellers. Now back to what you were saying, go back over to the list section, which is this one.
Yeah, the list. And then you would type in the select list or tags. Normally it'll be right at the top if it's fresh.
Yeah. So which I happen to call it new list Kingston. So
right. So once you click it. Now sometimes batch automatically skip traces so you can see the numbers. You would then either call them one by one, just going down the list, or you can pull the list, you can export it and do it that way. Now I don't know, because sometimes the exporting be messing up. When I export it, sometimes the numbers don't be there. I don't know why. I be losing my mind half the time, and I can clearly see the numbers there, and I'm like, well, why ain't the numbers coming with it? I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. But
and then how do you go from here to dialer?
Well, so all right. So the dialer, it's in that little horn thing where the little tag is, that little horn thing at the below my list. Like, yeah, down one more.
Okay, campaign.
Yeah, so the dialer AI is right there.
Okay, all right. So we actually do own a phone number dialer in here, or you can dial it on your own phone. We don't care.
Yeah, either way, it really don't matter. Like I said, it's been messing up with me, as you can clearly see. Every time I put it in there, it says 0 contacts imported, even though I clearly imported contacts in there. I don't know why.
And just so you know, and we should talk about that. If you find problems, let me know so I can contact the company, can be like, hey, what the hell? I pay way too much every month for the software.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And we have the same problem with this other one, Correctly, we use on the commercial side. And my partner's like, well, it doesn't do this. I'm like, when are we going to, that's $300 a month. Like, we're just flushing because we're not using it. And if we're not using an app, let me know. Like, if we're not using Correctly, let's dump it, because why am I paying $300 a month to not open the damn thing? Because none of these softwares are cheap. So anyway, so within the dialer, it can have a dialer, it can dial. It is not a multi-line dial, it's a single line dialer. Yes. And also, I think we're only paying for one phone line. So we have 8 users, but we only have one phone line. So if somebody else is already dialing,
Just gotta wait.
There's only one. I mean, can I get more numbers? Yes. If it's something you're going to use a lot, will I get it? Yes, because they're only like $3 a month. Let's have that conversation. But just until we have that conversation, realize right now there's only one dialer because no one's ever said to me, "Hey, we don't have enough numbers."
Yeah.
Also, if you're going to use it for texting or emailing, we need to have a whole different conversation because we have to talk about TCP, whatever that acronym is that the federal government doesn't like sales texting.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, Nate, go ahead. Anything else we should show people? I mean, I know both of you guys know it, so I don't want to go too deep.
I mean, I don't know. I only use the dialer and things like that. You know, you can upload the context, but like I said, sometimes when it'll say dialer campaign created or contacts uploading, and you just won't see no contacts. So I don't know. But other than that, that's pretty much how you would go about it. Like it's fairly simple. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's fairly simple. If I missed anything, let me know. I don't know. If I
no. I mean, this is great. Just so we have a little caption right here. All right, so I will get you, and I'll get you because I think we're at eight names. So I'll start just passing out the generic ones. Like we have 8 people, and if they don't use them, we'll move around. But right now, I do have a login for you, Mustafa. I'll get you set up with that today. You can pretty much get rolling right now. And so along with this, the sort of where question, and I am open to doing deals anywhere in the country. The only thing is that primarily we are Pennsylvania, Ohio, and adjoining states. Pennsylvania, Eastern Ohio, and some places else where people are learning to be competent. I am not saying no to wholesaling anything anywhere, but I typically reserve that for self-storage, commercial, mobile home parks, and bigger stuff because, as we've learned with the Garfield thing, which may be coming to the end of the rainbow, shockingly enough, it feels like Groundhog Day. Finally. Garfield is a deal that started off real simple, but and I'll tell you later tomorrow night. I'll tell you the story, but Garfield should have been a simple wholesale back in August, but is still dragging on into. Well, it's now time for Halloween because it's a zombie project. But and by the way, some deals go quick, some deals go zombie, especially when the title agent decides to do some things that don't make any freaking sense. But we like to stick where people have knowledge. So, like Demetrius, he's out in Long Island, so he may focus on Long Island, New York, and places around there that he understands. My whole thing is we are totally okay going to a new market. When we go to a new market, you don't know, well, which side of the tracks is the good side of the tracks, and how do the townships work, and how do the inspections work? How does this work? How does that work? Every time you go to a new place, whole bunch of learning curves. And it's fun to say buyer beware, but not entirely true because, first of all, if buyer doesn't know and seller doesn't know, it's going to go poopy. It's going to go wrong. And also, ultimately, if somebody gets pissy and we all end up in front of a judge, the judge is going to say, well, aren't you guys the professionals in real estate? Shouldn't you have known to look into this? And also, the really reason that we are careful where we go is that if we don't understand a town, it's very, very hard to understand what the price should be. There's a much higher failure rate, in my experience, of a deal not getting to closing. Number one reason is the number isn't right. Number one reason the number isn't right is because you don't know the market well enough to make a real number. If you're going too low, you're going to have people beating down your door. That's a good direction to be in. But if you're going too high, you don't know what you're going to get. Meaning, you offer too much, no one's going to call you. And you're going to eventually have to tell the seller, hey, listen, sorry, we're not doing this. And not that that's wrong, that's part of the business, but we have a higher statistic of that happening when we work in markets we don't understand. So that's why it's not about, anything that comes up anywhere. If that's the way you want to work, we will support that. We will give you, we're the business in a box, but your success rate may be lower. You're better off staying where either you know it or we know it. Pretty much all of Pennsylvania, we have a knowledge base. Eastern Ohio, we got a pretty good coverage ratio. Certain other places around the country, we've got a certain other amount, whatever. So that's the caution there. Any questions, anybody?
No, not from my end.
All right. So then what we do in our process is you're also going to then Google the property. And we're going to, in our spreadsheet, in our CRM, in your messaging to us, which I'll teach on the Thursday class, and I'll give you some of the work between now and Thursday, Mustafa, and other folks, is first we want this link. We want the Google link. We want the Zillow link. We want the Realtor link. We want the Google Street View link. We want the Google Maps link. We want every link in our information. So when I go in to look at the deal, plus we want your, all the notes you take from the seller questions, which I'll send out to everybody. Anyway, so, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, what works, what doesn't, get me some pictures, sizes of rooms, and, how old is the roof, how old is the furnace, all the usual stuff we would all expect. And if it's a multi-unit, who pays what utilities? It's the most overlooked question in real estate. Who pays what, tenants or landlords? What's, because in multi-units, the numbers, the rental, the incomes and profits begin to matter. So we want to know all that stuff. And we also want, and partially because we want to know it, but partially because they want to tell their story, they're not selling below market because everything is wonderful and they have all the time in the world. They're selling below retail because something is putting a pressure on them that makes them want to sell below retail. They're done with the property. They're in trouble. They're running from the law. Hopefully not. Whatever else. Running from the law makes it much more complicated. Trust me, I've been there. But, so we want to know their story for two reasons. One is you're building a rapport with them. And two is they want to tell you the story. And three is it will give us negotiating power. I just did a deal with a woman today who, for all rights, should be listing with me for $130,000 something. But I got her to do it at 100 with some escalations because I'm like, so what matters more to you? She's like, I need to have money in my hands within 4 months or something, or Medicare is going to take everything. Okay. Well, then we probably don't want to do a long listing period at a higher price. We put it out there for lower and hope for a better price. Yes. Okay, great. So, she's acknowledged that that's more important to her. And therefore I kind of knew that I could get it at a different price. She also expressed to me that she hated the house. There were lots of things she hated about the house. And she pointed out things that were wrong about the house that were not a big deal to me, would not be a big deal to an investor, but were huge to her. So in her mind, that was weighing on her property value. So from a negotiation standpoint, she gave me the keys to that negotiation. So we're not looking to abuse anybody, but whatever. And then when we get on the phone with them, so you bring us the information, we work with you to create a value and show you kind of where we got to that value, and we all debate it and whatever. And then we go back to them in the conversation. This is usually a call. All of these are not, you're not alone. Mustafa, I know you've done it before. Again, if you're comfortable, you're new to it, we do the calls with you until you're comfortable, and then you can do the calls alone. It's when you tell us, hey, I no longer need you on the call, on the initial data collection call, that we step back. Then, then you're on your own and you bring us the data, and then we do that call, you usually do together. For two reasons. One is legal in Pennsylvania, licensees, certain things they have to do. Two is very often they want to hear from the boss at that point. Not trying to be, play a card or anything, but they want to hear from the one that's really ready to pull the trigger and has the money and can talk about assets I have and whatever. And, certain deals, you'll grow to the point where you don't need us on that. But the point is that's when they want to hear a little more of whatever. Once we come to a number, I write the contract, Ryan co-signs it, we send it out. And from there, you guys are transaction coordinators. You guys are kind of keeping everything on track, and you're answering people's questions, you're checking with us, answering questions, whatever. and kind of making the process go. That's where you're earning sort of the rest of your percentages, the 15, 25, and 40 or whatever. And on that, I just want to cover again, I think I've talked to you guys individually about it, but whoever else listens to this later, it is 40% of what we end up keeping. And by keeping, I mean this. So we have a deal right now, has a $20,000 sale price, or $20,000 spread between buyer and seller. There's a pre-existing arrangement on this deal with someone who brought the buyer. They get a third of the money. Okay, whatever. That's their deal. So it's 7 out of 20 or whatever it is. So 13's left. Then from the 13, the company has to keep something because otherwise we can't afford these wonderful softwares. We can't afford our license in our life. So we take, it's now 20. We're trying to get that down to about 15. But okay, fine. We take a couple grand. And then from that is where we all start sharing. Now, on this particular deal, we ended up doing a 3-way split because this one went off the rails, and we just kind of had to, it was more a matter of Ryan and I having to jump in more than, frankly, Nair could. First of all, they kept leaving him off the emails, and second of all, it became a battle between my brokerage firm and a broker in Ohio that the buyer hired last week after 2 months of the transaction. So, but basically, from that number, our percentages are taken from after we pay out anybody external and after we take some company overhead. Then we're like, okay, this is what we're all playing with, and this is what we're sharing. And just to be clear, because if we gave up 40% of the check we cash, Nair would be making all of the money we actually get to keep, and Ryan and I would be working for free. Wouldn't really be a fair result because the company still has to survive. So, right. I mean, and we are trying to, and as you get more experience, as you get licensed, as you get whatever, we do have plans to up the percentage. The less Ryan and I do, like my goal is we each take home, Ryan takes 10, I take 10, and you guys are taking 80 or whatever, and possibly even higher than that for high volume producers. So we're not trying to be greedy. We're just trying to say that, we're working toward that, but right now it's this. It also depends on whether or not you have to be licensed and, there's other stuff. But I just want to be clear on that. So that's kind of how our process works. It then goes into the CRM, which I will teach on Thursday. It goes into the CRM, which walks it through every other step. So when you complete, for example, initial data collection, you send us a text, hey, Ryan, Steve, here's the property. It's in the CRM. It's in the spreadsheet. Now the spreadsheet will then be the CRM. And once we're okay that, we collected all the data, great. In the CRM, it goes to the next step, and it has its own checklist. And the CRM will have reminder dates. So you guys are project managing. The CRM is keeping an eye on that. We're keeping an eye on both. And then we might actually have a transaction coordinator we might bring on as well. So it's a matter of us walking it all through. So at this point, that's kind of what I wanted to cover today. The last type of conversation the last thing I wanted to cover is once we get signed is just the overall steps. We talk to a seller, we collect information, we come up with a number, the seller says yes to number, we write contract, we sign contract. Okay, now we've locked the seller down. Then we start marketing the property. We'll take you through that process. And we also contact the municipalities and say, hey, what exactly is your pre-sales inspection process? Is there a sewer inspection, water inspection? And this is where Garfield kind of went off the rails. Number one is they had one, but finding out what it was a bit more challenging. Makes perfect sense to them. Their website makes sense to them. Doesn't make sense to me. And then while we're doing that, we're working through with buyers and we're verifying that they're qualified for income and all this other stuff, yada, yada, and so on and so forth. And then it walks through once the buyer sees the property. They like the property. They've done whatever they want to do as far as physical inspections, contracts, negotiations, contracts, signatures, deposits. And then becomes the train of title. And the train of title is just that. The title company makes the rules. They make the timeline. All we have to do is bug them every week and say, hey, where are we at on this one? And make sure they don't forget us, which a certain title company in Allentown forgot us on 4 different deals. And those 4 have been a complete train wreck. So that title company no longer on our list. So basically, from once it's under there with title, once it's passed into the title, it's very much a monitoring situation and a put out fires as they go situation. So that's kind of the process. And our payment process, just to kind of close it, because two people I see online here, including in addition to Mustafa, are brand new, is wire or whatever. The money arrives to us. Even with a wire, it still takes a couple days for it to actually kind of settle. And that's when, and then we sort of say, okay, how do we pay you back out? How do we turn it around to you? And whether that's wire transfer or check or money order or whatever it is, fine, done. Yes, you are going to be getting a 1099 on the money. So there's going to be a W-9 filled out. You're an independent contractor. You're paying your own taxes, your own health care, whatever. So that's kind of how that works. Yeah, so I think hopefully this gets everybody started, and we can kind of go forward from there. I just discovered my computer's low on battery. Here we go. That fixed that problem. Any other questions I missed or anything, guys?
I believe you covered everything.
Hey, Steve, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you have any script about all these phone
Yep.
calls?
Yep.
Okay.
In fact, actually, thanks for bringing that up. I will pull up our scripts for you, and I'll send them over to you through Facebook, through Facebook shortly. Wait, no. Yeah, I'll pull up our scripts shortly. And the scripts are. I'm glad you brought that up, because this is the most important thing. Is your biggest role. Your biggest tool here is not the questions. And what I mean by that is, yes, the information is important. However, using our scripts is not the be all end all. Keep it conversational. Keep it sounding comfortable for you. Using our questions is not the be all end all. Like, I do not recommend opening the CRM and reading the questions necessarily in order off the CRM and trying to fill in the CRM while you go, or the spreadsheet, or even the questionnaire. I recommend you sort of, whether you do this on paper or digital notepad or whatever, I recommend you keep it conversational. So if I say how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, how many square feet, when's the roof, when's the furnace, and they start saying, well, last year the roof caved in, and I'm going to tell you about the roof, and then this year, we did this in the front yard and the front steps. It may take a convoluted way to get through what you need to get through, and you may not get through it all in one call. Whatever reality of life is, just may not happen. So use these scripts and questions as a guide, not necessarily as the order of operations of I must ask them in this order. So that's really what I'm getting at, is like, yes, we want to know these things, but how you get there and what you get there, because they're very delicate to. Besides sellers wanting to tell you the story, like this woman with the Thornhurst property, when she texted back over, she's like, I didn't understand why your partner she was talking to Ryan. She didn't understand why I, kept going between 180 or 280 and 300 as sale price and kind of using them interchangeably. Well, I was trying to say to her that last year we might have gotten 300 for your property, 2021, 2022. Market is changing. So now we have to base it off 280, 2/3, and all those numbers, which it's hard to do that enough to be comfortable. And that's one thing where Ryan's much better than I am at, sort of having that numbers conversation with the seller. But the point is, sellers can be very delicate. So if they want to tell you a certain piece of information now, let them run the show. Build the rapport with them. I guess what I'm really trying to say is building a rapport with them is more important than you having every single question answered. And you may not get to all these questions right away. You may forget half of them. That's fine. We can circle back as long as you kind of as long as you're getting the basic ones and you're asking for pictures. And expect, I mean, I almost said expect the unexpected, but that's too trite. Expect them not to be consistent, I guess. In some of their answers, not to be consistent, but also like last night, she said, "Hey, we said we can give you 180," and she's like, "Well, I need or 170." She's like, "I need 180." So okay, great. We've now given her what she wanted, but what she wanted, and now she doesn't want it anymore. She wants something else, or she wants to rethink about it, or whatever. Okay, that happens. Like Nair, we had that guy bringing all those supposed foreclosure deals.
Oh,
Yeah, not one of them was actually ready to sign on the dotted line. And of course, I'm sure in their story we're the ones that didn't deliver. But in reality, if you're too far messed up, we can't save you. Or if you are willing to listen to the song from an unlicensed, person, we can't save you. Because they will have a wholesaler tell them whatever number they want to hear, put them under contract, and they'll I've literally had people say, another realtor offered me more. Well, there is no normal world in which a realtor is making an offer. That's not what we do. We make a market suggestion. So anyway, yes, we'll supply you with scripts, but don't feel you need to be like, these are the words I must say. Make it your own. Understand it. Be comfortable where we're trying to go. And when you say something like, we are brokers and we can help that too, if you even get to that, I will cover that because I'm the licensed one. But, you're not a broker. Just say, hey, if it does come up, you'll say, listen, we're also a brokerage firm. If that comes up, you're trying to let them know that we are licensed and we are doing things according to state law, and some other people aren't. But if it doesn't come up, it's not important. That's my job and Ryan's job to bring that in the equation. We will take things in any condition. We don't care. Bring it to me with no roof. Bring it to me like the house in Thornhurst, the one for 280. Damn thing's almost dipped in gold now. I don't know why she's not calling a realtor and just putting it on the market. Okay, any other questions?
Not on my end. I still, realistically, like the questions that you just showed, I just revamp them, make them short and to the point, because nobody wants to. Truthfully, I'm not saying it's lengthy, but nobody wants to feel like they're going down a list. I just revamp them and try to navigate it. You know what I mean? Like they still be the same questions, so you can get an idea. But I just revamp them and everything like that. So I can suggest that when you do look at those questions, you try to like organize them and revamp them where you can get most of the information, but make sure you get like the information we would really need, like property taxes, renovations, and condition mainly. And if they can go into detail about those particular issues, then you're pretty solid. But because I've tried going down the list, and frankly, it was with this Italian fellow, and he was from New York. He was like, "This is too long. I'm from New York. You need to be quicker." You know what I'm saying? So 9 times out of 10, people are not going to want to sit there and go through the questions. So just try to revamp them if you can.
And you're not going to get. I mean, and if you guys are like, well, Nair's been doing this well. Like he kind of knew which one's the most important. If you're like, hey, which are the 10 I need to do? So I'll tell you which 10. But I'll tell you for the most part, we're looking for physical condition, age of roof, age of furnace, age of major systems. What do the cosmetics look like? And that's where, we didn't update too long ago. Who was president? Reagan. Okay, that's not last year. Or when my daughter was 5, we updated it. So, and then your next question is, okay, how old is your daughter now? Well, references like that tell us. Or, cosmetics. What are the what's the kitchen look like? 1950s, 1980s, 2010, brand new. Oh, it looks like a cottage kitchen from the 20s. Okay, great. We know that's a complete rehab. And that will plug into our spreadsheets later. And I'll show you that on another call, but that plugs into our spreadsheets later of, how we do our math. Okay, is the kitchen a full gut kitchen, not a gut, but a start over kitchen is, let's say, 10 grand. All right, well, a 1920s kitchen is probably 10 grand. A 1980s kitchen is probably 70% of that. A 2010 kitchen is probably 40% of that. So even if you can get us in the ballpark, of, well, the roof was redone, when Obama was president. Okay, roof has probably got still some life in it. It's older, but it's not dead yet. Even if they can't nail it down precisely, a ballpark is great. And if it's like, I don't know, don't scare them, move on. I don't know, great, move on. I don't know, great, move on. If they're not the owner, if they're not the one in charge, we can't be talking to them. Well, I'm calling for my friend. Well, we can answer a few questions for you, but we only talk to your friend. But if they're an estate executor, if they're some variation of that, they're going to know less about the property. So you're keeping it like Nadia said, you're keeping it light, but you're trying to give us enough to determine value, enough to determine rehab costs. Because our not final step, but our creation step has to do with what's a flipper going to do? Well, the math in the world typically, and there are flippers that do it differently, there's math that does it differently, there's markets that work differently. But usually you say 2/3 to 70%, whichever is easier to do, is the most a flipper can spend on a house, bought, fixed, and done. So if he's going to sell it for 100 grand, he's got to be done for 70% easier there. 70 grand. 2/3 isn't hard, 67,000. But some numbers like 300,000, 2/3 is easier than 70%. They're close together, so just fine. So flipper, if it's going to sell for 100, flipper's done for 70. It's going to sell for 150, flipper's done for 100. Then repair costs. We will walk through with you. We'll come up with repair costs. That's where these questions come in. That's where the pictures come in. Then, okay, we went from 150 to 100. We got 50,000 repair costs. The flipper needs to spend about 50 grand. We need to try to get a little bit less than 50 grand because we need some room. In a certain situation, like this lady with the 280 house, I was willing to go to the line. I was willing to give her 2/3 because I'd seen the house, and the house is basically done with a brand new kitchen, granite undermount sink, yada yada. So what am I doing? Cleaning the carpets and throwing some paint around? I'm probably selling that to an end family. But normally that's the math. And when they say, well, how long does this process take? Say, listen, from the day we sign the contract, we get our people in there typically within about 4 weeks. Within that 4 weeks, we will either give you a thumbs up, we're going to title, thumbs down, we have something we have to talk about. Can't make the numbers, whatever. Assuming thumbs up, we go to title, it's usually another 3 or 4 weeks. Oh, well, I've been promised someone can close in 7 days. Man, you know what? Good luck, but Steve's been closing deals in this state for 25 years. Nothing closes in 7 days. I mean, you want to give it to me for 10 grand, I might close it in 7 days. But you want a reasonable number? No. But this is the conversation I'm then having with them. I'm saying, well, realistically, how fast do you need it? We can speed it up by doing this, this, this. But normally, and you're not going over numbers with them. That's our level. But just in terms of looking at it. And at the end of the day, the last thing I want to share is when you're starting out, don't throw anything away. Don't just look at a deal and say, not going to happen. But if Zestimate shows, so let me just I still have the Zillow house open. Okay, so there was a house for this one, and it had, this is the 270 house, that it popped up with the Zestimate of 270. I don't care what Zillow says. I pop back here, and I say, well, comparable houses. The house I'm looking at is 1,000 square feet. Okay, not 1,900 square feet. Okay, 1,092, 370. Wow, that's a lot for 1,000 square foot house. Okay, that's my and then I look at the pictures. It's sold, and that's my dipped in gold, and I can work back from there. So if they're asking, and you don't tell them no, I'm not saying that. But if they're asking full retail and you're like, then when you're sending us the notes, you're saying Batch Lead said this, Zillow, Batch Lead said this for dipped in gold, Batch Lead said this for what they're telling me it is. Zillow, if you do it, you don't have to, said this for dipped in gold, this for what it looks like it is. Therefore, I think based on this is you throwing us internally, what you're thinking, which maybe in the beginning you're not thinking anything, you're not there yet, fine. But the point is, this is then what we do is we say, okay, wow, dipped in gold is, and this is the art part that we teach you. But basically, if you look at it and somebody says, I want 370,000 for a 32,000 square footer in this market, and theirs looks like it's had a bomb go off inside, we're probably not making a deal. So you'd be saying to us, listen, they're wanting retail for something that nowhere near retail. Don't think it's going to work. Or anything like that. Like this is where your chance of saying, hey, I don't think it's going to work. I think it's going to work, whatever. Also, one of the questions should be in the conversation is, are you listed with an agent? If they're listed with an agent, it pretty much ends the conversation. Because then the only role we can play is bring the buyer. And that may or may not be valuable in a place that's far away from us. The last ones that are not throwaway lines, but are definitely getting close, are if they're already on the market in any way, shape, or form. Are they FSBO, for sale by owner? Are they Facebook Marketplace, Zillow, listed by owner as for sale? And the reason those are not throwaways, but I certainly won't spend any time on them, because if the world's already seeing the house for sale at pick a number, they're already putting it on Facebook Marketplace at pick a number, that house. So we can't buy it from them and put it back on the market at a higher number. Our buyers aren't going to pay more than they saw it on Zillow for last week. We can't even take $10,000 off that number and put it back out there. Because first of all, the world's seen it at $100,000. Why would they buy it from? If they would have already offered 90 if they wanted to offer 90. So, only way we can take something as a wholesaler that's on in any way advertised. Back in 2021, I was saying even with a sign in front of it, is okay. He had it marketed for 100. I'm getting it from him for 50, and now I can bring it back for 60. Rather than, I'm getting it from him from 80 and I got to bring it back at 90 because the world's seen it at 100. Why would they do it? They would have already given him the offer. So anyway, that's those are the ones that, again, aren't necessarily throwaways, but I would say don't spend any time, very much time, if any. Any time is fine. 0 is fine. If it's on Facebook Marketplace, if it's on Craigslist, if it's already out there, you're going to have to sell me on the idea why it's worth time. And the other one not to bother with, and I'm not picking on anybody, but hey, I heard of a lot. I heard, here's a lot in Tulsa, Oklahoma that is worth $1 million. What do you think it's worth? That's fine if we've talked to a seller. If we haven't talked to a seller, there's no point in debating what that lot is worth and doing all the research. It's worth saying, gee, do we think lots in Tulsa, Oklahoma are worth it? Is that a market we should investigate? In a general sense. But there's no sense in running down every detail about a property unless we have a seller that's having a conversation.
Right.
Because in any town, you saw when Nair was showing batch leads, there were 4,000 addresses in the town that the AI came up with. And then when you pushed AI to most likely, it became 800 or something. And then when you started adding filters to it, it became 200. And then from any of those numbers, only a certain percentage, let's say 10 to 20%, are going to answer the damn phone. Maybe 50%, but depends on how good your list is. But the point is, you don't research 400 properties when only 200 are going to answer the phone. You find out which 200 answer the phone, then you look into the properties. Because also of the 200 that answer the phone, a certain number are going to say some variation of not interested. Don't want to have a conversation. I get sales calls every day not every day, but once a week I get wholesalers wanted to buy my property. That's the shortest conversation they had. Number one, don't want to sell. Number two, I'm a broker and a wholesaler. I don't need you. Very politely, but still. So we always start from a conversation with the seller. All right, guys, been about an hour. Did I miss anything? Is this too much, or we good?
No, I think we covered. Unless you wanted to cover something else. I mean,
No, I mean I'm pretty good. Mustafa, any other questions on you?
No.
Okay, all right. So I'll get you a batch lead login. I'll get you the scripts. I just emailed them something. I'll get you the scripts. I'll get you a batch lead login in the next few minutes, and then we'll be good to go.
indeed.
Okay, great.
Cool, guys. Thank you. Have a good day.
Of course, you too.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice day. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.